State of Play this week welcomes back the politically opposite cousins, Representative Greg Lavelle and Wilmington City Councilman Steve Martelli. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us again. This week we're going to work into accountability and corruptibility and also electability. We get all the abilities in, all in one segment. And I want to start with a quick follow-up to the state integrity study we had last week. Greg, you were one of the sources in that report. The state got a C grade. Is that right?
Well, let's say we can do better. We should do better, and I've always advocating doing better around all issues of accountability,
We're
disclosure.
not Georgia, though.
Well, you could always be worse too, but you know, we've got to set. My family, Steve, we were taught to set our sights high. I'm not sure I wasn't always at your dinners.
Well, you know.
So, you know, clearly we need to do better. You know, a number of us have advocated. We've gotten FOIA, and I've not seen all the elements that compose the grade, and I had some people suggest to me that we missed the report missed a few things that we've passed recently. So be that as it may, I'm not going to say the grade was wrong. It just gives us a continued path to work on. But clearly, you know, the issues we've had with DelDOT, the issues we've had across a host of things, even going back, you know, to the psychiatric center and some things like that. I mean, it's just not good. So anything we can do to improve our transparency, to either legislate or just sort of do it on our own, hopefully, you know, accountability and things like that, we should take every advantage and look to every outside group for suggestions. Absolutely.
Yeah. Agree?
No, I absolutely agree. I'm a huge proponent for transparency in government. I think what I found most disturbing, although I will say, I know that Greg and I probably agree with most of that, but I have to disagree with Greg on one thing, which is the idea of mandating or legislating where folks go once they leave, particularly towards lobbying that bill. I understand the intent of it, but to me that just seems to be, you know, being able to legislate what someone does for a living. And I understand what the intent is.
We do that actually, because like for cabinet secretaries and division directors, they have that constraint right now in the law.
Right, but
so you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. At some
and
level.
I
get
understand
your
that.
point, yeah.
You know, but I think what I found most disturbing about the study was the fact that there is a Public Integrity Commission, which is one person and a staffer, and has a $30,000 budget. I'm assuming a $30,000 discretionary fund. The budget line obviously includes salaries and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. She does a fantastic job with the resources she has.
Right.
But I mean, you know, you choke the cat.
Yeah, I mean that to me was the most disturbing thing about the entire study. I mean, I think we all here in the state know that we're very, very poor. And, you know, obviously those in the media more than anybody else, very, very poor at transparency. You know, FOIA is such a difficult task here. Just dealing with, I mean, you know, even the latest issue we've had in City Council, where, you know, Councilwoman Walsh, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, asked for a very basic request to council members, and folks hid behind FOIA and hid behind the Police Officers' Bill of Rights, which were not applicable whatsoever to just City Council, you know, at all. But it's those sorts of things. But I think we all know about the challenges facing there and the changes that need to be implemented. But the fact that we have, you know, one person who's tasked with, I think the numbers that I saw were 40,000 people with regards to anti-corruptibility and anti concerns and issues with regards to that, and one staffer, one investigator, and $30,000. That is, and putting it back in to the General Assembly and saying, okay, you mandate and you allow the fund line. Okay, you can dictate the fund line.
Sure, and it's a good point, Steve, because I mean, you know, there's an initiative coming forward with lobbying reform.
Right.
I think we need to look at how we behave prior to, you know, dictating or over dictating how lobbyists behave in the reporting. And I'm all for it. You know, I can vote for the bill, but could we do more? Absolutely. You know, even on campaign finance reports, I mean, I like to look at those. People are late. The reports are half filled out. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Well, and I think that's where one of the reasons why I disagree with the lie, and I think you brought up a great point, is that we need to look at how, to me, if I'm at the General Assembly and I walk into the General Assembly and I walk into the House or to the Senate and I'm a member of that, why should I be concerned what that lobbyist says? I should vote with the people who elected me there. It shouldn't make a difference with it. So let's regulate how we act.
Yeah, and you're right, and it comes from behavior. But you know, as I like to joke, lobbyists are people too, and they are a source of, you know, we're expected to know all sorts of issues, and we deal with all sorts of issues. So you get your information from all sorts of issues. All sorts of sources, I'm sorry, including lobbyists, registered and non-registered, and advocates, you know, and all those types of things. So you have to rely on that and not be bought by it, certainly.
Right.
But I mean, some of the things that we regulate in Dover, when you're running for office in particular, you never have any idea. I mean, and then you have to deal with the relationships between car dealers, for instance, and car manufacturers. It's
Right.
regulated by the state of Delaware. So just to the depth of the issues, but you're spot on.
Does the state benefit from the problems with corruption that we saw over the last decade? And now it seems like a lot of those, because of changes at the tops of, whether it's in the governor's office or in Newcastle County, changes where things are not as bad as they had been before. If this report came out 10 years ago, we could have gotten a lot worse grade.
It's not 1964 anymore,
Right.
thank goodness. But I think we can do better. And to that point, this ongoing investigation by former Chief Justice Norm Vesey to the Del Dot Tigani campaign contributions, that will be very telling to see what comes out of that. And so there's some other things that will go on there, so we'll have to see.
And I'm sure there's 100 families in Sussex County who would suggest that they're not better off at all, that it's a long time coming. And because, in my opinion, because of the lackadaisical or just absent oversight, a guy like, Bradley was able to do what he did for as long as he did.
And corruption is, everything's about economic development, right? Jobs, all this. Corruption is a barrier to entry.
Sure.
Either real corruption where you have to pay bribes, or or
Right.
even perceived corruption
Right.
where, I'm never going to get that done because this guy. So it is an economic detriment.
All right, let's move on to electability. Newt Gingrich came to Delaware this week, the first Republican presidential candidate to do so, and he thinks Delaware will go Republican this fall. Listen to what he told our Shirley Mint.
People who think the current unemployment rate isn't good enough, people who don't want to pay $5, $6, $7 a gallon for gasoline, who like my $2.50 a gallon plan, people who are worried by the size of the deficits and believe it's going to cheat their children and their grandchildren of a decent future, people who worry about national security and this new report that the president basically told the Russians to let him get past the election before he sold out our missile defense. I think there are a lot of folks who, for different reasons, may this year decide to take Delaware into the Republican column.
All right, Greg, we'll start with you. Is Newt right? Is this a Republican year in Delaware?
Well, I think it's going to be a Republican year nationally. I mean, Delaware is a very difficult state. I appreciate Newt cheerleading, but I'm on TV now and I can't lie. It's a challenge.
I hope you don't lie.
I was gonna say, as opposed to off TV.
Yeah, well, just my cousin.
Only in the house.
I'm buying lunch today, I promise.
You are
So,
buying on TV.
I mean, the challenge is a challenge for the state, and we recognize that. I'm the vice chairman of the Republican Party. John Sigler's our chairman. He's been doing a great job. We're coming off a very difficult 2010. We don't have to relive all that. But we have good candidates at the top of the ticket, and it is a challenge, but we have to be there. I mean, some people have suggested to me, well, why do you even run? I mean, that's what our democracy is about.
Right.
We have to run. We have to challenge. We have to do it politely, respectfully, and forcefully. Newt's a great thinker. I mean, you can't argue with the guy. He's got great strategic vision. And knows world issues and all that sort of stuff. So a great presidential candidate. We're happy to have him come to Delaware. We want all the presidential candidates to come to Delaware, just as the Democrats would if they were sort of having their mud steel cage match this year.
I don't know how much of a strategic thinker, that whole moon base thing, I mean, that really kind of doesn't add credibility to the
Steve,
great strategic thinker thing.
Imagine if you had a microphone on yourself all day long.
A moon base, dude, come on.
So the response following Gingrich's visit here, the reaction of, or I guess the plan he implemented after he came to Delaware, sort of may discourage others from coming here. It seems like he's kind of slowing down his campaign following the visit.
In Delaware.
He peaked here, and now it's sort of downhill. Problems with finances and
yeah, I mean,
changing.
we were kidding, but everybody has seen many of the candidates, not all of them, what the cycles they've gone through, and Mitt has certainly. Sorry, Newt, not
Wow.
Mitt. I'm supporting Mitt. Newt has certainly hit that trough and having troubles with fundraising and all those types of things. So I think he announced just last night, actually, that he's sort of pulling back, sort of cutting staff, recognizing his fiscal position, and going to find a new way to sort of power forward. It'll be interesting to see. He's on the ballot in Delaware, so he will be on the ballot in Delaware. Whether or not he's how formally engaged in the process he is at that point. But he said his wife Callista is going to come up and spend a few days here. So we'll see if that actually happens next week.
Fun to watch for you on the Democratic side to see all these guys come in and.
I just think the whole thing has been fun to watch from the Democratic side. I mean, I understand what's going on. I understand you have to appeal to that far right conservative base, but some of the things that are coming out of these guys' mouths, and I don't get it. Because the other come the general election, they have to turn it and do a complete 180 and come back to the middle, and now alienate.
That's
so disingenuous.
What about when the phone rings at 3 a.m.? Who do you want to answer it? And now she's the Secretary of State for that particular president. So these things happen. The public's not shocked, I think, by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I don't think.
And really, and the people who make the election or determine the election are those 20 to 25%, maybe 15 to 25% in the middle. You and I know who we're voting for.
Right.
And the work is for the party and the challenge for the candidates, be it Barack Obama 4 years ago, to make those pivots. And I say that with all due respect, not
right.
with scorn. The same thing will have to happen here. It's just the way it is.
That's almost like, I don't disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's almost like saying that the way we do things in Delaware is just the Delaware way. Just because that's the way. I think that the campaign season is just way too long.
Oh yeah, that's
it's
a whole
just
different question.
It's just a bit ridiculous, and these guys have to say these guys and gals have to say these things. And to me, they're not doing the country any good with a lot of this rhetoric that they stir up.
Let me put my partisan hat on. Rewind the clock 4 years ago, and you had the same thing going on. So I'm going to.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, just make sure for the record.
No. Oh, I agree. I think across the board.
It's too long.
The process all around.
The process, whether it's Democratic or Republican.
And the funny thing, it's funny with HaHa, is when Steve and I go out, in October of 15th before the election, people are done with it, man. You knock on somebody's door and they're like,
get out
of here. I had it with you all.
You just told me who I'm not voting for.
And that's bad for us because we do have significant impacts at the local level.
Right.
Clearly, the president has a significant impact, but a lot of the day-to-day quality of life, on the ground stuff
All
is done
politics
by Steve and myself and others like us,
right.
And so we pay the price for what flows downhill out of that pipe, and it ain't always good.
And we got more flowing over the next couple of months. Maybe some more presidential campaigns to visit Delaware in the coming weeks before the primary.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure. We'll see, and we'll talk about it here on State of Play. Thank you, Steve Martelli and Greg Lavelle, for joining us on State of Play.